Hey, poker people, thank you so much for tuning in to another YouTube training video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, along with that little bell notification so that you get word every time I release a new video. So Gokul sent in a question. He's one of my listeners, and here his question was actually a pretty long email. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, but it boils down to this right here. Against a tight under-the-gun open raiser, why call with a potentially dominated reverse-implied odds hand like Queen Jack suited when Jack 10 suited or 10-9 suited or pocket fours could be just as playable? Now, if you don't know, reverse-implied odds means it's the kind of hand that can lose you a lot of money. You know, if somebody is only raising with ace king, ace queen, ace jack, and you call with ace 4 and you hit that, ace XX flop, you hit a top pair weak kicker, you're probably going to be losing a lot of money because that kicker of yours is just basically a crap kicker, especially when your opponent is only raising the ace king, ace queen, ace jack, right? So that's a reverse implied odds situation when your opponent's hands dominate your hand for sure. So, and within the email, Gokul cites this example from Peter Clarke's Grinder's Manual. The under-the-gun suggested open raising range that the Grinder's Manual discusses is a 10.6% range of 140 combos right there. And here's the range. You can see it. Here's it printed out, a picture of it. Now, in the cutoff, this is a completely separate issue. In the cutoff, he recommends calling with Queen Jack suited as the lowest recommended suited connector to call. When you're on the button, it's Jack 10 suited and 10-9 suited. Also, pocket fours is a recommended calling hand. Now, I don't have any qualms with this raising range or these calling hands. Not at all. But Gokul has the question. With my opponent, if this is his range, he has so many queens in his range. Am I calling? Or am I dominated when I'm calling with Queen Jack? Isn't Jack 10, 10-9, or pocket fours better against this kind of range? And just to illustrate it, here is the situation. Hero is on the cutoff, or in the cutoff. Under the gun opens 3 big blinds. And now Hero has the option to call, raise, or fold, of course. So we're going to answer Gokul's question here. Is it better to call with one of these other hands other than Queen Jack suited? With my 2 favorite tools, Flopzilla, bam, number 1, and Excel, number 2 right here. So what we're going to be doing is doing a little bit of range work here, along with some board work, and looking at a specific hands, Queen Jack, Jack 10, 10-9, and pocket fours. So first off, we are facing a 10.6% range, 140 combos of this right here. Let me show you an easy way. If you have this saved in your, in your notes somewhere, Control C to copy that. Come over here, hit range, Control V to paste it and hit OK. Bam, there's the range. Of course, you can manually select them all one by one if you want. No worries there. So the first part of his question, he was asking, Queen Jack, there's a ton of queens in this opener's range. So let's actually calculate that. Let's see how many queens they actually do have. Out of 140 combos, the queens, all we got to do is deselect the non-queen hands. Queens is 46 combos. Okay. And the jack, so what I'm going to do, range, Control V to put that one back in again, and then delete every non-jack. 34 combos, simple. And now tens. And the reason why I want to look at queens, jacks, and tens is because those were the hands that Gokul asked about. Queen Jack, Jack 10, 10-9. So we're thinking about tens now. Keep all of these 10s, that 10, get rid of these. Pocket 10s, there's only 26 combos here. Now, as a percent of this entire range, 140 combos here, how many queens is that? Well, 46 divided by 140, 36%, okay, or 33% I mean to say, 24% for the jacks, and then for the 10s is 19%. So you can see, of course, he's right about that. He's right that your Queen Jack is dominated by a big portion of your opponent's range. You can see 1/3 of his range has better queens than you. I shouldn't say has better queens. 1/3 of his range has queens that dominate you, as well as one queen that ties you, and another queen that you currently beat. So you're ahead of some, tie others, and a bigger majority beat you right there. With the jacks and the 10s, same kind of thing happens. Now, let's see here. With this entire range, what is your equity with these various hands versus this range? Now, the Queen Jack has 38.2% equity. Not too shabby. Now, the Jack 10 has 36-7, 10-9, 35-5. And a pocket foes probably has the highest equity because it actually has some showdown value, right? It has a pair already. The queen jack is only queen high at the time. So the queens, we've got 40.3%, the highest bit of equity right now. Now, the queen jack suited, our opponent has 140 hands. Queen jack, it goes down to 118 hands, right? So we actually block 22 of our opponent's hands, 22 of their good hands, because queen and jack, well, they have pocket queens, they have pocket jacks, they have ace queen, king queen, offsuit as well, queen jack, ace jack, king jack. Our queen jack blocks a ton of their good hands, right? They have less strong hands, and a bigger portion of their range are these kind of weaker pairs and weaker non-paired hands. Jack 10, let's take a look, goes from 140 to 123. We block 17. 10-9. Whoops. 140 to 129. We block 11. Pocket fours, my guess is that it blocks 0. As you can see, there are no fours in our opponent's range. 44, 140 combos still. Exactly, 0 right there. Good, good. So as you can see, when we do have those hands, we end up blocking quite a few of those ace queens. Actually, let's go like this. Good, good. Yep, so queen jack, we block quite a few of their hands. 22 of their good hands we actually block, which is, not a bad thing at all. Now, let's take a look at various boards, right? He had asked the question, he's really concerned, Gokul is concerned with being dominated if we do hit our top pair hand. Well, queen jack, let's say we have a queen 3 deuce board. Actually, let's put this one in right here. And then when you do this kind of work on your own, you can assign any board you want, actually. So on a queen high board, our queen jack against this range, we have a whopping 67.0% equity. Things are looking pretty good. Sure, we are currently dominated by the ace, king, the king, queen, and the pocket queens, but we're currently ahead of the queen 10. We're ahead of the jacks, the 10s, the 9s, the 8s, the 7s. Maybe these are a couple of clubs right here. We're currently ahead of all these different flush draws that our opponent could possibly have, if that were the case, if it weren't a rainbow board. And even if it were like yeah, actually, we won't look at something else. Let's just stick with this right here. Nice and simple. Keep things simple, to really highlight the differences between these hands and why you would want to choose queen jack versus fours versus jack 10 versus such a tight range. So that's on the. I shouldn't have copied and pasted them all, huh? Jack 10. Okay, so. Now, that's queen jack on a queen high board. We flop top pair, not the best kicker, but we still have 67% equity. Now, jack 10 on a jack high board, 64.1%. Things are looking pretty good here. So even though this hand is currently dominated by aces, kings, queens, pocket jacks, we are ahead of 10s through 7s. We're ahead of, I guess we chop with the jack 10 here, and we're ahead of all the different overcard and like backdoor straight draws, backdoor flush draws that our opponent could have. So things aren't looking too shabby. We hit that pair, 64% equity. What about 10-9 on a 10 high board? 62%, 62.2%. Now, of course, on the 10-9, we're ahead of the 9s, the 8s, the 7s, and all the different overcards that our opponent could be c-betting with. All right. Oh, I guess I could have done this at the same time with all those various boards. So let's start up here. Now, pocket fours on the queen high board. My guess is the equity isn't the best. It's probably not bad because at least there is a pair. The hero has a pair for sure. It's not like 6-5 on a deuce 3. All we have is a gut shot, 25% equity. Pocket fours is not going to be too bad at 36%. 36.3% we can say. What about on a jack high board? Pocket fours, 41.3%. Oh, our equity is improving here. Whoop. On the 10 high board, 44.9% equity. So as you can see, the lower the board, or yeah, I guess you could say the lower the board, from 10 high all the way through the queen high, as the board As the high card on the board gets lower, our pocket fours gain in equity, especially when our opponent has a lot of cards that completely whiffed on the board. If it was a 7 high board, bam, 53% equity, things are looking great. On an ace high board, not as good, 40.4% equity right there, right? So basically, when you have pocket fours, the lower the board, the better. And so that's why oftentimes when you're calling with fours, you're basically just calling a set mine. And if you do not hit that set or don't even hit an open-ended straight draw, you're probably going to be exiting the flop pretty darn quickly here. All right, so that's basically Gokul. In your question, you were thinking really in terms of blocking and your equity versus the ranges, but actually you didn't even mention the equity within your question. Now, if we look at the equities, you can see definitely when you hit that top pair hand, things are looking pretty darn good for the Queen Jack, the Jack 10, and the 10-9 versus such a tight range. So that's why Peter Clarke recommend calling with the Queen Jack. And then, you know, as your position got later, he started to add these other types of hands into the calling ranges. Now, I do have some notes to highlight just a couple of important considerations here. First, you've got to be careful when you flop top pair versus tight open raising ranges. It's possible that you're dominated, but it's not a sure thing. So we put our opponent on this range. Of course, on that, let's flip the script here. So on the queen high board, you have top pair bad kicker. Sure, you're currently dominated by, hit the tab button. If it's just these, you're currently dominated by 33. Take that one out. Whoops. Take out the one that we beat, the one that we chop with. Okay, currently, if they did hit that queen in some way or have an over pair right there, yeah, you're currently dominated, right? He has 81% equity against you, and that is a terrible situation to be in for sure. But just keep in mind, right? You've got to be careful. It's possible you're dominated. If your opponent decides to triple barrel for 3/4 pot or full pot or pot and a half all the way through the streets and all you have is a top pair weak kicker, it's probably a good idea to ditch on the river or possibly ditch on the turn if his bet sizing went from half pot to full pot on the turn, kind of a thing. So you've got to be careful. Let their actions not dictate, but let their actions clue you into what possible value type hand that they have. Now, the wider the range you face, the more equity an individual hand has. So let's just take a look here. You've got the Queen Jack on the Queen high board. Let's say they had every pocket pair in their range. Your equity is very good at 67% because, sure, they picked up some sets, but you still have that top pair that crushes a lot of these hands. What if they have all these nines, and what if they have every Broadway in their range? Bam, your equity is even more at 73%. So one of the things to keep in mind here is that, sure, Peter Clarke recommended this as your under the gun opening range. But as you know, a lot of the players that you play with, there's no way they're opening this tight, right? A lot of them are opening every single ace, few of these offsuits, and every single suited connector, right? Now, against such a wide range, forget this. Well, with this board in mind, you have 79% equity. You've got a lock on this hand. You're winning 4 out of every 5 hands as of right now before the turn in river. Without this, you actually have 48%. You're chopping with this range. Things are looking pretty darn good for you. The wider their range, the more profitable Queen Jack suited is for calling right there. Let's see. Next up, Queen Jack suited, it blocks pocket queens and pocket jacks from your opponent and from other opponents. So there'll be less worry of value 3 bets after you call. So let's go back to this sheet right here. So you're in this situation. You've got the Queen Jack. If you choose to call, your Queen Jack blocks him, and him. Not completely blocks, but it makes it less likely that they have pocket queens, pocket jacks, less likely they have ace, queen, and maybe even queen, king, queen. Some of those hands that like to 3-bet you that you would probably fold against. So Queen Jack is a very good hand. If you just have the 9-10, yeah, you block pocket 10s, but as we know, a lot of opponents like to just call with 10s and pocket 9s as well, right? So that doesn't have great blocking strength. Queen Jack does, though. Now, your call is going to elicit other calls, and they'll do so with worsening ranges. So Queen Jack suited is better than 10-9 suited and better than pocket 4s. Let's take a look at a quick example with this right here. So against this range, let's put in our current range that we're thinking about. Okay, 140. I have one extra. Oh, Jack 9. Okay, 140 hands, 10.6%. That's this range. We have the queen jack suited right here. Let's say let's say we're called by one other player, and let's just give them a decently wide range to call with, not super wide, but we'll just give them a few hands here. Let's take away those. Okay, let's say they're calling us with a 27% range. Okay, our equity currently against this one caller is 28%. Things are looking good. Sure, we don't have a ton of equity versus that open raising range, but things are looking pretty decent right now. What if an additional caller comes? So in the example, that 28%, let's say that was the button calling. And now what if the big blind ends up calling? Big blind ends up calling. Well, they've already got a blind in. There's already so much money in the pot. Let's give them a super wide range like this. 28% equity. Now you've got 24% equity. Things are looking pretty darn good against three other players right here. So your call, not too shabby at all. What if you had the 10-9 suited though? 24, whoops, not double suited, 24% equity. It drops a little bit, 1% or so. So you can see, I mean, every percent counts, right? The math totally is important in poker. And if you can, you know, you're going to be making more money if you were able to repeat this call a million times with 10-9 suited as opposed to queen jack suited. You're not going to be making as much money if you called a million times with the queen jack suited. That's why it's a better hand than the 10-9 suited. Let's see here. Now, beware of later position 3-betters. They're going to make you fold all your suited connectors and your pocket pairs. If you call with queen jack, if you call with jack 10, 10-9, or pocket 4s, any of these guys 3-betting, most likely you're going to be folding. So before you make that initial call, great. Peter Clarke said this hand is within your calling range, that it is profitable to do so. And we just demonstrated, totally, it is profitable to do so. It's not a bad hand to call with, especially if you hit some kind of pair on the flop. But you just got to beware of your later opponents, what they're going to potentially do, because as soon as you call, you open yourself up to some good 3-bet squeeze bluffing opportunities for these other players here. Alrighty, thank you very much for listening. Once again, hit that subscribe button down below. And of course, if you have your own question that you'd like me to answer like I did for Gokul here, just send an email to sky@smartpokerstudy.com. Peace out, y'all.